I'm Kelly Lewis.
And I'm Tiffany Jones, and we're your Revenue Insiders.
If you're enjoying the Revenue Insiders, we'd love your support. Follow us, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. Hello. We have a great show for you today. There are 5 of us. 5 on this podcast. We have never done this. I've seen it done, so I know it can be done, but we have never done this. So bear with us as we jump into some new territory here. But today is exciting. We have Arist, Michael and Ryan from Arist, which is a company I actually advised for. They were the first company I started advising when I broke out on my own. So excited to have them here and talk about everything they're doing. And then they actually brought a customer, Kris from Ecolab. So I'm just going to have them do quick introductions because they'll introduce themselves. And then we're going to jump into some hard questions. Michael and Ryan, we've got hard questions for you. Kris, we want to hear how it's going. All the details. Michael, why don't we start with you? A brief introduction.
Totally. First off, thanks so much for having me. My name is Michael. I'm our co-founder and CEO based in New York. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, Ryan.
So Ryan, our co-founder and president, and also based in New York, and also very excited to be here.
And of course, our special guest of the hour, Kris.
Hey everyone, Kris Zilliox. I am currently in a sales role at Ecolab. I'm our RAVP of corporate accounts for our mountain region. But previously, just about 6 months ago, for the last 7 years, led our global institutional training team, which is where I've been able to experience Arist on both sides now, as a learning leader and now as a sales leader.
I'm in this hunt for just-in-time AI delivered enablement. And so really excited to hear more about what you're doing. I'd love maybe Michael and Ryan to start off a little bit from both of you. What problem are you really trying to solve? What is your journey on how you got to founding this company?
Totally. So zooming out a bit, Arist started a really long time ago, or not that long ago, like 5 years ago, as a way to deliver learning in war zones initially. So really unusual background for an enterprise technology company. Main question for us was how do we reach people in really hard to reach locations and meet them where they are? And we started realizing was that if you deliver learning via text message and Teams chat, you can actually make learning dramatically more accessible. And if you space it over time, it's way more effective as well. Fast forward to today, we're really focused on solving 2 problems. Problem number 1 is that today, if you're a large sales organization and a competitor launches a new product or a new shift, there's usually a 6-week lag time before you properly train your reps, right? And training reps is hard, right? You have to build a bunch of content, personalize it, version it, right? Translate it, sometimes into 50 languages. That process is super expensive and takes a ton of time. And so if you're launching a competitive update or a new product launch, which is a lot of the work that Ecolab has done, historically there's been this meaningful lag time, 6 to 8 weeks before you properly train your reps. And every week that reps are not properly trained on a new product, a new competitor, or tactics is a week that they're not selling at their best, right? So that's really what we're focused on. How do we push the right learning to the right people at the right place at the right time? And I'll pass it over to Ryan to dive more into sort of the AI component and the push-pull dynamic that we think about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing too, we always get a lot of questions about how does this fit into, for all these leaders, a new stack, right? And everyone's got this massive learning stack, and the last thing they want to do is add a new tool. I think to Michael's point, the reason that push first communications is so important is because most learning today has what we call the Netflix effect, where I've got a giant wall of content. We always tell folks Netflix has a multi-billion-dollar content budget. We've all had the experience of I open it up, I watched all the cool trailers, I still turned it off because I don't know what movie to watch, right? And a lot of learning today is structured just like that. There's a lot of really great content in there, but it is long form and the learner has to know what they need to learn, self-navigate to it, and then finish the entire experience. And those 3 things are really tough. And so broadly where a lot of this space is going is a combination of your push and your pull systems. Pull systems like an LLM, I know what I want, I ask the right question, go find the right thing. Push systems like us, hey, you as a learner don't need to know what you need to know. I'm going to figure that out based on data and push that right to you.
Yeah, we call it internally the TikTok generation of enablement is what my team refers to it as. It's almost like your For You page that you need to curate for our sellers.
No, totally.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that I love so much about what you all offer is as an enablement leader, it is that panic. A new product comes out, especially in the world of AI. They're coming out constantly. Your releases and your launch periods are so much shorter. And you've got this massive field that you need to get up to speed on that. And that handoff between typically marketing, who has all the product information, and your instructional designers who then go build that course, that could be another 3 to 4 weeks before you even get that course into the hands of your sellers. So skipping those steps, it's just so exciting for the world of enablement. So with that, Kris, I'm excited to hear from you. Ecolab is a very cool company, obviously really focused on moving to a digital first thought process as you continue to innovate. And I'm excited to hear, why was the investment in Arist made? What problems were you trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me specifically, the history I have with Ecolab has always been within our institutional division, which for those who are not intimately aware of Ecolab, which is the majority of the folks probably listening, is we're the group that supports restaurants, hotels, long-term care facilities, schools with hygiene, food safety, and we're really behind the scenes like many B2B organizations. And so what that means is we are out there, our folks are out there day in, day out, serving our customers, boots on the ground. Here in the US, we have over 3,000 people in our US field team that are frontline territory representatives serving those customers. And we knew they have laptops. They don't use them a lot. They all have company issued iPhones, and that's what they live on. And so when I first met Michael, probably almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and was introduced to Arist, I was a little skeptical at first from the perspective, I didn't know if our teams would embrace it or be like, another thing, like corporate's now sending me text messages. Are you kidding me? And so I was really skeptical at first, but I thought, wow, what a powerful tool. If embraced by our team, it's a device that they're already using constantly. It's where they prefer to receive communication. It's how they're communicating outside of work anyway. And so when we had the conversation, I heard from others within similar service industries, sales and service, big frontline sales and service organizations that were having great results with it. I said, let's have a conversation. And the Arist team set up a great pilot for us, and we were able to dispel my skepticism very quickly.
It's fascinating. Like the text messages into your phone. One of my big pillars of how I do everything in my ops and strategy and enablement teams is like meeting our teams where they're at. Like nothing's going to work. No technology is going to work. No learning is going to work if like it's not where they need it to be. And we are big Slack users. Same with you. Like we're not in the field like on site with businesses, but they're still on their phone. It's their primary resource. And so it's 100% like where people need to be at. I'm curious, Kris, like what, you said it dispelled your concerns. Like what are the results you're seeing? How are you measuring that this is really working for your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So at first, the initial pilot we did, which kudos to the Arist team, they've made that really easy for us as a vendor partner, was to test it out with 100 of our frontline district managers. And so we created actually, something I think post-COVID, as we were kind of all returning to work in a different way, having a hard conversation seemed to be a muscle that had atrophied for many. And I know this is not an issue specific to our company, but just continuing to focus on how do we empower our employees and our leaders to have some hard conversations to really drive accountability in the best way. And so the Arist team helped us put together a pilot for that. We sent it out to 100 of our district managers, and the results were amazing. So for that first pilot, I think we had like 90% participation. And of the folks that participated, they saw all the way through the entire campaign, and their confidence level at the end of that course was really high. And so we did a little more research afterwards just to better understand before making the investment in the platform. But just it was really well embraced. And I think, Michael, I remember that conversation with you. I said, we've got a really kind of diverse, from an age perspective, from a embracing digital perspective within our frontline territory reps. I'm not sure how this is going to go. And I think, Michael, what you told me was, well, the number one way that I communicate, even with, for you, the most probably least technical person in your life was your grandma. And you're like, it's through text message. And I thought, you're not wrong. That's my same for me in my life, right? So if everybody in our life, regardless of age, is really embracing that platform, it became very clear to us that it's a way that we can deliver learning. And so that first pilot for us was really successful, which led to us pursuing a greater partnership with Arist. And it's still early enough, and I know Ryan and Michael know that we're continuing to look at different campaigns and how we measure it. But I would say where we've had a ton of success has been with some of our innovation and new product launches. And so as we prepare to go to market with some new innovations, so for example, one of them was our new rapid disinfectant. When we wanted to make sure that our associates were empowered with, we're also regulatory, it's a chemical or highly regulated. We want to make sure employees are empowered with the right sales information to help their customers understand the platform and the customer, or how it can help their customer. And that information. And so Arist was a great tool for that. Give them some basic education, but also help them build their confidence with some basic sound bites of how to really have a good conversation with your customer to help them see the value of the product.
One of the things that I continue to hear, and I just heard from you again, is around participation rate. I think as an enablement leader, that's always something you struggle with. And you feel like you shouldn't. You think accountability at in corporate America would be fine, but it's not. And so 90% participation from managers. Managers were always my hardest to actually get to do the thing. They'd get their teams to do the thing, but them actually doing the thing was hard. So 90% is really high. That's very impressive. And I know, Ryan, you actually have a lot more studies on adult learning. And one thing that I think is so impressive about what you're doing is you're not just building a product based on what you're hearing, but there's actually a lot of science and other things behind why you're doing this. Do you have anything you want to share with the audience that you found recently that might be interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say one of the, some broad context, one of the biggest questions we get is someone just saying, look, this looks cool. People pay attention. Can I actually teach someone something meaningful in a short, soundbite of text message? What we always remind folks is that learning is so much more about repetition, engagement, consistency, and number of iterations than it is about the amount of time I spent learning something. To put it in layman's terms, if I watch an hour-long video, I'm going to remember far less than if I broke that up into a few sound bites and spaced that out over a few days. And probably the best study that we've done on this. So a few years ago, Brown and the World Health Organization used Arist for a campaign called a digital vaccine, which was basically how much can we train someone ahead of election cycles in different countries to look at their sources, to vet those, and then to see how they did as a result. They took two groups of hundreds or thousands of people and essentially looked at, okay, for group one, we're going to use a more traditional method for teaching them how to do that. For group two, we're going to do a simple 5-day spaced out Arist experience. And there were no interventions in that group for 8 to 12 weeks. And so we usually wouldn't run learning programs where someone learned something and then we didn't talk to them for 3 months. But that's just how extreme this example was. When they looked at those groups 90 days later, what they found is that the group who took the Arist course remembered and applied 88% more information than the group that took the initial course. And so what's so amazing for us is not just that happened, it's that happened after we essentially left them alone for 3 months. And then we saw how much did that information stick. And so we've got a ton of studies and white papers, but I think for us, that was just the biggest one of, okay, if we can get, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to vet misinformation more, what we've really created here is a much more powerful way to drive behavior change at scale. Where do we want to point that?
I love that study. It's very interesting. I think you all have done a really nice job of challenging the way we all think through learning today. When I first started enablement, there's frameworks and stuff that are thrown at you and are like, this is the way, this is the golden method, this is what you do, this is how you make it work and how you stick. And I just don't think, to Tiffany's point about the TikTok generation, we do have to rethink it. And Michael, you're a great follow on LinkedIn. If you're not following Michael on LinkedIn, highly encourage you to do so. You do a great job of being a little provocative out there and challenging all of us to think through things differently. So I'm here for it. I want to know, how did you get comfortable doing that? And then what are you really trying to challenge us all to think? How are you trying to challenge us?
Yeah, totally. So I think there's a few things. One is that there's a lot of conversations that happen in private, right? That we sort of wanted to bring into a public forum, right? I think broadly, there's a lot of data points that I think are somewhat alarming, right? So for example, today, if you have content sitting in a learning management system or in a CMS, on average, it takes a rep about 7 to 20 clicks to get to the right content, right? And for every click, engagement drops by 50%. Right. So, from our point of view, it's like, for some reason, we as an industry have decided, right, that the best way to deliver really, really important and critical information and behaviors is to package it into a 30-minute or hour-long PowerPoint and put it in a box far away from where everybody spends their time, right? And like if you step back and if you think about that from first principles, that's like kind of crazy, right? It's not really like how people learn. And I think there's a lot of organizations like Duolingo that have proven that like, no, you can the science of how people learn is actually very different from all of our preconceptions. And so, what we started realizing was that this is a conversation that nobody was really having publicly, and that we kind of wanted to start having publicly. And I think especially with AI, it's an interesting moment, right? I think the worst case scenario with AI, right, is that we end up in a situation where people are using AI to build very long PowerPoints to put in a box over there, right? Whereas I think with AI, the real opportunity here is how can we create super relevant, hyper personalized content faster? How do we get it directly to the right people at the right place at the right time? And how do we make life easier for reps, right? Reps are really, really busy and they need enablement, right? Enablement is absolutely critical. It's more a question of how do we get it to them in the right way at the right time. And so we have a bunch of fun on LinkedIn. I think, like we're always open to a candid conversation. And I think for us, it's just like now is the moment to have it, right? Like now is the most critical moment for revenue enablement teams. And we just want people to really seize the moment in the best way possible.
It's so interesting you describe that, right? I think every company has this. We do. We're super small and we have like the box with like the 1 hour, and no matter how much we challenge it, like it still exists, like that methodology of learning. But as you were talking through it, like for me, what just clicked is like a lot of that is because like my subject matter experts, my PMM, my product managers, like they want to spend the hour talking. Like they have so much information to share and that's so traditionally been the world that they've lived in, that it's almost about them delivering it, and it's not thinking about how someone needs to consume it to actually learn it. And it's why PMM and enablement are two different functions, and it's not just one mode of delivering. And so I think that there's a lot of like cultural shifts every company's going to have to go through to really unwind like what are those two roles, and how do you deliver that mass of content that PMM or product or whoever has behind them, but then transition it and like really sell the whole organization on that transition. I'm really curious, Kris, and then I have another question for Michael and Ryan, but I'm curious, Kris, like you've been on both sides, right? You were in structural design and now you're on the sales side. Has that bubbled up for you at all? Like that difference in working with the content creating side of the business versus how you then need to consume it?
Yes. Yeah. And I think where Arist really shines, and I guess I'll back up and just say, I think one of the biggest silver linings of COVID, there wasn't many, but it really for us here at Ecolab, and I think many organizations really accelerated our digital strategy. So when I started in 2018, we had a kind of a homegrown LMS. We had very little digital. We weren't even doing a lot of like Teams-based or WebEx-based learning. It was very heavily reliant on in-person and really at key transition points. So onboarding, new manager, new role, that type of thing. There wasn't a lot of just-in-time learning from that perspective. There wasn't a lot of digital offering. And then COVID happened, and that flipped all of that on its head completely. And it flipped how we looked at digital tools, how our leaders and our employees were willing to embrace them, or they maybe hadn't been previously, right? Whether they liked it or not, we had to all embrace digital differently. And so as we emerged from COVID, we as an organization, we did come back to in person. And so I think that's the key piece of this too. We really try to approach learning at Ecolab and like an omni-channel approach. That it's not, you have to make it like it's prescriptive, right? You have to prescribe the right learning solution based on the need. And we have folks, fixing commercial dish machines that are proprietary, and it's really intense. So far, I haven't been able to do that like exceptionally well digitally, right? We really want to do that hands-on. We want to have them in person. We've got a beautiful facility here in Eagan, Minnesota, where they have that opportunity. But again, we appreciate the forgetting curve too, right? There's a lot that's thrown at them in that time. So as we think through that omni-channel approach, it's like, okay, we give them that first hands-on opportunity, or salespeople give them the opportunity to practice, right, in a safe environment, to get exposure to senior leaders in person. But they're going to go home and they're going to be like, what did they say about that again? And that's where Arist has fit really well in a couple different channels for us. One, as we discussed earlier, standalone, where we have a brand new product that comes out and we're going to, get it out to every associate within a specific field, in a specific role. But also we have used it to augment some of our programs, our existing programs. So to really combat that forgetting curve is, where we really can then supplement it after some of our, whether it's in-person or virtual learning or manager coaching sessions or whatnot. We really do try to use a lot of it, different channels. This really helps us from that sustainment element of it. It's been really successful for that perspective. But, I think a key thing of this too, which is really interesting for Ecolab right now, and many traditional, again, 102-year-old companies, is we're used to selling more tactical things. And now our organization is having to also sell digital, right? And so this has been a great tool for us to embrace digital and to also help our teams learn about selling digital through those digital tools. And that's been a great partnership for us.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love the comment around omni-channel, and I'm gonna, just kind of dive into some questions we didn't all talk about ahead of time. But like, I'd love to hear from Ryan or Michael, like how you think of Arist fitting in from an omni-channel versus like the first point of enablement concept. Like, is it part of the package? What have you seen outside of what Kris described at Ecolab and some of your like best customers and how they're using Arist?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that one thing that people really kind of get wrong about learning, I think Ecolab is getting very right, is that you do need to meet learners in kind of a variety of, not just variety of places, but a variety of depth of information. And so a really good example is, a lot of our customers in the pharmaceutical space say, look, we know we've got a ridiculous amount of information. To imagine a new rep in, there's brand new industries being invented in the pharmaceutical space right now, right? So that rep, she has to learn all about this new space, the new, what they call disease state, the new indications. And so I think where Arist really comes into play is one, the reinforcement component that Kris mentioned, how can we get folks to remember more stuff? But then two, for most base concepts, you can get someone from 0 to 10 really, really well with something like Arist. I think what we find today is that live practice scenarios, hands-on, those are great ways to get someone from the 10 to 100, right? I need to sit down with a coach or a mentor. The reality is that over 85% of workplace learning that's done today actually fits into that 0 to 10 bucket, right? We often like to tell folks that Arist is really good for things where simple concepts plus well practiced equals mastery. And so it's fairly simple. I need to practice it over and over. Think being a good sales rep, getting that talk track down, being a good manager. 0 to 10 on that is what most of the content today in a learning management or content management system is focused on, but it's where we're wasting all that rep time. And so then when we fly every rep out, for example, to Vegas for a week and all get drunk and do the sales kickoff, all of that time is spent on things that could have been live in-person coaching because we could have taken all that content and put it into something like Arist. The last point I'll make here is that, what's really fascinating among our customers, a lot of what we're seeing, especially in sales organizations, is people are actually using this as a tool for speed to impact on the most critical things. And so in a sales organization, that's product updates, that's competitive updates. Today, if you need to train a global sales force of thousands of people on a new tariff regulation, many of our automotive or manufacturing customers, right? Supply chain shifts, new pharmaceutical drugs as they release, you can create the content in a few weeks, and then it might take you 2 to 3 months to actually get that to folks. But this is content that changed yesterday, and they need to know it tomorrow. And so what's really fascinating is that all of this energy is being put into using AI to rapidly create stuff. What no one's talking about is even if you can build it instantly with AI, if you're not using a delivery system people are already queued into, you're only getting critical info to people when you wait for the in-person session. And so it's good for the simple things, but it's good for the really rapid things people need to know now. And then I can have my in-person sessions as the follow-up to that or as the more in-depth experience once a month or once every few months.
So interesting. I often think I came from healthcare before I moved into tech and enablement, and we always talked about alarm fatigue in that you're in an ICU and there's alarms going off everywhere, and so you just ignore them all, even probably the important ones. And I think one thing you're doing by the SMS versus the Slack or the Teams is that you're not typically getting work updates via your text messages. And so you're going to pay attention to it. Like, how many emails, even if you're not in an email heavy culture, are you just getting these long newsletters that are just everything's buried in there? And so I do think that text message really focuses you and says, hey, this is important. Pay attention. Tariffs are coming. This is how you react to it. This is what you should say. So my next question's for all three of you. Maybe Michael, we'll start with you and then go to Ryan and Kris. So I really want to know where you think enablement is going to be in the next 6 months. And then, Kris, for you, I want to know, where are you going next? What other use cases do you see Arist being used at Ecolab? So, Michael, just want to hear from you. What's your prediction?
Totally. Yeah. So I think I love what Kris said about the criticality of the in-person experience. From our point of view, based on what Kris and Ryan said, I think enablement is getting more polarized, if you will, right? So I think the in-person experience is becoming way more valuable, and I think the really bite-sized experience is becoming way more valuable. And I think you sort of have like a falling out of the middle, if you will, right? Because you either need to get something like a basic concept to somebody quickly, or you need to like give them really, really in-depth coaching, right? Or like a really in-depth live experience. That's sort of my perspective. We are seeing a very, very rapid shift into like Teams and Slack and text message-based delivery, just based on our data, right? Which has been super, super interesting. I think the core reason for that is, people check these messaging tools once every 6 minutes. They check the LMS once every 6 weeks, right? And so there's sort of a natural shift, and then I think there's going to be a much greater focus on behavior change, right? And like how do you track behavior change? And I think that is now way, way easier to do if you have more interactions with a rep, right? So I think one of the neat things that happens when you meet reps in the flow of work is that, historically in an LMS or a CMS, you get maybe like 2 to 3 points of data every month or every quarter about where a rep is really struggling. Today, we have tons of data on where reps are struggling, right? Like with Arist, we're interacting with them every day, right? With Gong, we record every single call they have. With Salesforce, we track every interaction they have. And so we think that learning is going to become a lot more predictive, right? Where you're using data from Salesforce and Gong and Workday and Arist to paint a picture of what a rep needs to know and push it to them before they even know they need it. I think that's sort of that's what we're sort of building towards, and I think that's where things get really exciting, right? Is like the truly predictive enablement, because reps don't know what they don't know, right? And if you just give them a box to type a question into, you'll be surprised how often they won't type in the right question into that box.
Totally. It's not only predictable, it's also personalized. I think that's the hardest thing as an enablement team as you try to scale is everyone is at different levels, and all of those insights, there's so much that can finally be done around personalization, which is exciting. Okay, Ryan, what's your prediction?
Yeah, obviously, Michael and I don't differ too much in our opinion of what the future will look like here. But
That's fair.
the other thing I'll add just to the conversation earlier is that what I think is most interesting is that enablement stacks are really going to go broadly from today, where it's a content library, a system of record, and then in-person experiences, to what we call push, pull, and practice. And so your push systems are going to create a foundation for people. I don't know what I need to learn. The vast majority of e-learning is just getting someone, again, from 0 to 10 today. And so we're going to see, like Michael mentioned, push systems where AI knows what's going on. It knows, hey, Ryan's coming to this company. He has no idea how to do most of this stuff. And so we're going to guide him through this in a way that is retentive, that's highly iterative. Second, you're going to have a layer of pull systems. We've got years and years and decades of content and repositories. When I need a resource, when Ryan's confused, he can go chat with an LLM. He can pull that info. I think right now people are making the mistake of thinking that an LLM is going to kind of do everything. And again, it really only is one of 3 legs of that stool. And then the third is practice, right? To Kris's point, in-person experiences are invaluable. And when we use these push and pull systems really effectively, the benefit is that without needing to increase the in-person time that we're requiring of our employees, because folks forget that's just incredibly expensive for a lot of reasons, we can get a lot more out of that. And so that'll be in-person experiences, mentorship sessions, coaching sessions, AI role plays, which are becoming big right now, right? But that really only works as a most advanced state where I'm ready to live practice, not necessarily as this is how I'm going to get all my info or find all my info. So push, pull, and practice broadly.
Okay, Kris. So based on all of that, where do you think you're headed using Arist?
Yeah, I think, the number one thing that we're trying to work through, and I can see it on both sides, right? And I think I probably feel it more now on the sales side. It was probably part of the problem previously, is the overwhelm. Right. Our sales teams are overwhelmed. I think speaking to what, Ryan and Michael mentioned too, is there's no shortage of information now, and we have 102 years worth of it. So there's no shortage of emails, SharePoint sites, Teams messages. And then you take a salesperson, you have all the internal communications, and then our teams all have, many customers they support, often hundreds, right? So then you double that with some of the interactions they have with their customers. So there's a lot there. So I'm very hopeful of our goal of every revenue facing organization and customer facing organization is to have our frontline out there, adding value to our customers. And so I'm hopeful that AI will continue to add that kind of value, helping sort through the noise, and helping them to really distill down what's most critical. And I think Arist does a great job of that. I think going back to something that Ryan said earlier is, I think from an LX or instructional design perspective, it requires a lot of discipline. So I think you can all appreciate, and I go back to my early sales days of getting a deck when the new spring product line would come out. It was like 300 pages long for marketing. And a salesperson would have to take it and go from 300 pages to 3. And then you have to really think about, well, honestly, at the end of the day, what does the customer care about, right? So what I love about Arist is it's made us as an instructional design team really be disciplined about just distilling it down to those most critical bullets, which ultimately is going to make this retention and the application of that learning so much easier. And so again, I'm really hopeful overall that we'll help people get what they need when they need it, really at that point of need. And I think Arist will continue to be a really powerful tool. But I also think, overwhelmingly, as much as AI, I'm a huge fan of AI. I was a very early adopter. I think across our industry, especially supporting hospitality, we hear a lot of noise too, that we can't forget the people side, right? So how is AI going to help our people be better at what they do, and that front part of front facing the customer, so they can do that part better and not be bogged down with some of the administrative tasks back at their desk.
Yeah. Ah, great. I think it's such a great outlook to have. The people plus AI component is so critical, and we hear it a lot, but probably not enough. Like it definitely is something worth keeping front and center. Kris, we love to end our episode by kind of asking someone on the call. We normally only have one guest to leave us with like a question to help everyone form their own point of view. For Kelly, myself, for anyone listening, Kris, I'd love to ask you, what's a question that we should be asking ourselves, really challenging ourselves with as we leave this conversation?
Well, I think where I landed the last one is a key one. How does that people factor pair with AI? How can we really leverage AI to accelerate the people factor?
That's a great one. Well, this was fun. I'm surprised that we didn't talk over each other all the time with 5 people on this call. I'm very, very impressed. But so much information in here. Michael and Ryan, thank you for challenging the way we think about enablement. Kris, thank you for being an early adopter and showing the results. I think it's so helpful for everyone else to see and hear when it's working, where it's not working. So thank you for joining us today. If people want to learn more about Ecolab, where do we reach out? And then, of course, Michael and Ryan, where do we find out more about Arist? So, Kris.
Yeah, absolutely. Ecolab.com, or we're on all the social platforms. Would love to have more people learn about our company. So thank you both for having me today, and Michael and Ryan for your partnership with Arist.
Likewise, yeah, super grateful for the partnership. Also, just a quick shout out for Ecolab. For those of you who don't know, Ecolab is leading the world from a sustainability point of view, and much of the world has like clean water and sanitation because of Ecolab. So it is a remarkable company, and I've loved learning more about it. And if you want to learn more about Arist, we're at arist.co. Michael and Ryan at arist.co if you want to email us directly.
Yeah, highly, highly recommend them as follows on LinkedIn. Always entertaining, good stuff out there.
Yes, I'm going to go do that now.
And then, of course, if you are not following the Revenue Insiders, we can tell there are more of you listening than there are following. So please give us a follow. It helps us connect with more listeners like you. But this was a great conversation. Kris, we are excited to actually the week this episode drops, which is April 14th, we will be on stage with you at Emblaze in Denver. Yeah. We'll see you again shortly. Ryan, we'll see you there as well. So excited to connect again. But thank you all. This is a fun episode.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Take care.
If you're enjoying the Revenue Insiders, we'd love your support. Follow us, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners